Welcome back to another episode of Room for Growth. Super glad you are here today. Today, I don't entirely know what we have in store for you, but I have a teaser for you. It's that Billy warned me he's got questions about personalization. So, on one hand, how can you empower different types of personalization use cases in your technology, particularly customer data platform, customer engagement platform, or CRM? But then, two, are those use cases worth their weight? Do they drive returns? Do people find them creepy? Are they appreciated? We're going to try to make some sense of personalization, what carries its own weight. Is that right, Billy? Is that what we're doing today?
Yeah, and I was thinking we keep like we've talked a lot about CDP. There's always like these
Yeah.
technical pieces of CDP that we're talking about. But I was reading this article, and the author of the article mentioned kind of they've looked at customer surveys, looked at customer feedback of what type of activities do they find creepy versus what type of activities do they find valuable. And I don't know. As I was reading through some of this, I was like, wait a second, some of these things feel like best practices, and like everything, it's like all about the approach and not maybe the true tactic. But I just wanted to like throw a couple of these at you. So 19 the article that I'm referring to is 19 CDP use cases that can annoy or engage your audience, and I wanted to just like pick through a couple of these. All right.
Okay, I'm ready.
So in the creepy category, I think there's probably a couple that were like, wait a second, and then others that we would say, yeah, I agree. That's super creepy. Let's start with one that I think we can agree on, like apps that listen to what you're saying, which like this is like in like if you like go out to
Yeah.
the coffee shop, so like, did you hear that Facebook is listening to you? And like, there's all these arguments around that. And so I agree, like generally that's probably a creepy tactic. But the one that this author has listed as creepy, the very first one really caught me off guard, and that is using location data. And like, I would love to like talk to our friends at Radar and like Imparticle and Segment to like, how many of your marketers are using location data? And I'm guessing they're going to say every single one of them. And the example he has in here is, hey, you're close to our store. Come in now for a free gift. And it kind of states this is too much like stalking. So let's sit here for a second. Using
Okay.
location
Yeah,
data, like how do you do this as a marketer well?
totally. Wait, let me back up for just a second. Okay, so rule number one of is it creepy or is it not is don't be creepy. Almost always, there are some of these use cases that set out with the best of intention, and either how they're messaged or how they're executed is what makes them creepy, even though they don't have to be.
Right.
So part of these, I think there's a really big difference between what the vision was and then how it was executed. And it's really easy to miss the mark and end up seeming creepy when you're not. Two, on the listening front, I think I'm a weirdo in this regard. I don't think most apps have the capability to actually be listening. A few probably could do voice recognition and then autobot that into something that's a recommendation. But for the most part, people forget how much information they just give to companies. Actually, in the changes to some of the cookies and the way that people pixel track usage, when you're giving permission now, because of changes in how brands have to ask for permission, you are actually giving brands much more expansive permission to know what you're looking at across the internet. So they don't have to listen. You're telling them. You're making purchases. You're visiting people who have made other types of purchases. This isn't hard stuff. Like people get kind of amazed at how well marketers can reach you with a product that might be a little bit top of mind for you. But it's actually, there's nothing really creepy going on besides the fact that you're consenting to how much data goes out. So, okay, now let's get into location.
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah.
I I think actually location is not super creepy. I think people understand and like the idea. They know that they have their app on your phone, and generally you can know where somebody is based on where their phone is. We all use map apps now and take directions from our phone. I think people are getting a lot more comfortable with the idea
Yep.
that if you carry a cell phone around with you, the brand doesn't know where you are. It knows where your cell phone is. So I don't think they freak out about that. There are some use cases where actually people love when a brand is aware of their location. So drive through being a big one. You
Hmm.
placed an order to pick up food, you've arrived in the drive through, and you don't even have to do anything to tell that brand, hey, I'm here. the brand already knows.
Right.
They're already aware that
Yeah.
it's time to bring your food out. They love that. An in-store version of an app. A lot of consumers actually love when a brand knows that a consumer is in the store. So, say for instance, I don't think Target does this, but Target is my go to. So, say you're in Target and you're looking at an item and you want to price compare. Is it cheaper online? Is it cheaper at Target? Is it cheaper at another brand? And Target could say, hey, are you price comparing? We'll make sure we price match with another brand, a competitor. Or, yeah, we can ship this to your home at no cost if it's out of stock in the store. Like, those are really helpful examples. I think when they're really creepy is like, hey, we know you're half a mile away and we'd just really like you to stop in. Like, that's creepy. But
It's
saying
also kind of lazy, right? It's
it's
probably
so
very ineffective.
lazy. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Yeah. But saying like, hey, we know you're half a mile away. And if you turn around and leave the McDonald's drive through to come to Burger King, we'll give you a special value meal. That worked like gangbusters.
Right. It's as you're talking, I'm thinking there's a lot of really great use cases that are utilities that make the experience better. Like, oh,
Hmm.
we started preparing your food because we know you're in the parking lot, or hey, you're at the store. Starbucks does this. Like, you're at the store, so click here, tap here to open up your loyalty card, just to make the whole scanning process a lot easier. But where it gets risky, I feel like, is using location data to try to drive traffic, essentially sales. I think is where you have to be very delicate and you have to be very smart. We highlighted like the lazy example, like, hey, you're a half a mile away, time to swing by McDonald's. Like, okay, probably not that effective. So any examples that jump out to you as like using location data to drive traffic, like
Yeah.
unexpected traffic?
So that one, I think people call it creepy, but it's actually just annoying. It's like, hey, brand that I don't care about. I wasn't showing any intent to want to visit your store, and you're not offering me anything special to do it. You're just trying to point out that it like might be convenient. Actually, one of those use cases that I can think of is a movie theater for quite a while was geo-targeting anybody who came within a certain radius of their theaters to just like send a push to say, come on in. The thing that was really annoying about that is if you're driving on the freeway, they have several theaters or like a pretty major byway through a city. Yeah, you have no intent on like going to a
Right.
movie at that moment and you're just getting this distracting message that's supposed to be location aware. Like that's just a point where it's not creepy. It's just it's annoying.
Bad.
But on the
Yeah.
other hand, one example of this I think is good is say pizza place A or local, pub or restaurant says, hey, everybody who's in this stadium, here's a special discount
Right.
if after the game you're wearing your insert team name and you
Your
visit
Ohio
us with
State
an
shirt.
order.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a little value in that. It's a little fun. It draws community. That's a great example. Furthermore, just stadiums in general, it actually really can change the experience. If you know somebody's live at an event, the way you can market to them is wildly and should be wildly different than if somebody's
Right.
watching television.
Okay, so I think we align here. So move on to another one that they have kind of in the potentially annoying category, and I thought this was like a good point, and but a tricky one. Inferring a habit from a single transaction. So it's like you buy your mother a beautiful red hat. I mean, there's probably a better example. You're let's say you don't have a cat, but your mom wants gifts for her cat for Christmas. You buy at one time, and now all of a sudden, your Insta feed is filled with cat products. This is also strikes me as very lazy, and something that brands in a really good CDP strategy, you should be able to understand kind of a one-time purchase versus, this is an obvious fan, right? Oh,
Maybe. So a couple of big ones here. One use case that I know is really common that brands struggle with, and it should be so simple to solve, is they don't know when somebody is visiting because they have a gift card or they're purchasing a
there
gift
you go.
card or not. So that should be an easy one. If somebody has purchased a gift card, you should not then start sending them all kinds of messages about your brand. They don't care. They were
Yeah.
not the recipient of that gift, probably. And that's just sort of lazy because it means you didn't take the time to collect the data that you really need to help that gift card receiver also have a great
Yep.
experience and come back and nurture. Second of all, it just goes into the fact that too many brands immediately start inundating people with messages versus giving them like a little respectful window to train them into the brand and get some more signals about how much they might like to be included. So that one's interesting. The second is like I think funny, and this one's harder to solve from a scale perspective, is like you buy a vacuum on Amazon and then Amazon assumes you want more vacuums and you want recommendation. Like when to know that a purchase is like, nah, I'm done. But generally, I think that purchase should be the point that you at least have some level of understanding. You just took a high value action with me. It's now my turn to restart a cycle of thanking you, of telling you what new things might be coming available, and then, yeah, adding that single data point to a group of data points about what you
Yeah.
are interested in. It is hard though, because it's a best practice if somebody purchases something, the thing they're most interested in purchasing next is probably what they purchased before. That's actually like pretty good starting logic. You just can't have that logic rule everything you do.
Yeah, yeah. So the gifting idea is like a perfect scenario where this is like just don't start blasting somebody after they've purchased a gift because it's probably a one time purchase. I just purchased a shirt from a new brand, Cricket. I think it's called Cricket, CRIQ. I don't know how to pronounce the brand, but I'm starting to get that experience where I buy one shirt and now I'm getting an email every single day. I'll give them credit though; their emails are very focused on like, hey, you just need one more purchase and you qualify for like free shipping for the year. You become a VIP. And so they're very action, like benefit oriented. So I'll cut them some slack. But let's scroll down the list and look at other kind of. And now we're into the area of like these are the the author is saying is these are like the ideal scenarios, not creepy, not annoying. Um, Ways to leverage a CDP. And there were a couple that we've talked about exclusive and early access. If you produce timely content, early access for loyal members is a big benefit. That's one that I was like, you know, uh, loved that because to me, if I can, if what's the benefit of a loyalty program? Like every loyalty program has points and discounts, but
Mhm.
like early access is something that I think not a lot of brands leverage. And this doesn't really work for like food service as an example. Like what would you want maybe early access for? But new product rollouts, seasonal rollouts, those sorts of things. I think there's a huge
Well,
opportunity here.
this is a good question. I'm still stuck on something from before, though. So I have to go back for just a second and then I can come forward. You know how my brain works, it goes in full cycles. One thing that I do think I've been seeing more frequently, you've been talking a lot about just the power of content, how content can change the intent. So to your point about, hey, you don't need another t-shirt, but part of how they're messaging that is like if you just buy one more, then you reach a loyalty tier. I've seen a lot of brands, instead of remarketing directly on their website products that you already purchased, they're now just creating modules and sections that say items you've browsed or past purchases where they call it out for what it is. And then if that becomes helpful content because you are there to see what you purchased in the past or what you looked at, it's called out in that way. And it just feels less annoying than seeing a thing you just purchased again. So that just feeds into the idea of like, just be honest and transparent with your customers about what they've done with you and why you're feeding it to them. Okay, loyalty programs and early access. That one's interesting to me because the first thing I'm thinking is like, you don't really need a CDP to
To
tell
do
your
that.
loyalty customers that there's like new loyalty rewards available or that they could have early access to sale. That's pretty simple segmentation right there that
Okay.
doesn't require the advanced personalization that you would get from a CDP. Um, so that's an interesting one. You certainly could use a CDP for it, but that's not usually the problem that most brands are solving for in that use case. The thing they're solving for, to your point, Billy, is that they just don't do it frequently enough. They don't understand that loyalty members might care about having early access to a storefront, or even to your point around like a fast food restaurant. Loyalty rewards or new items sell out really quickly. So giving your loyalty members one extra day to say, hey, come and buy this item. It's not even listed yet. Here's the special password to get this menu item. Things like that can be really super fun. They can absolutely drum up support. I mean, like Nordstrom's
Yep.
entire business is based on this sale that they do every year, and it's exclusive for their credit card holders to get first access to it. Like
Right.
that's a huge tactic of theirs. Where else have you seen this one, or where else do you wish you would see it?
Well, I think, like fashion is where I think like clothing retailers, and that sorts is where I see that sort of thing all the time. I think generally where I'm stuck in a mental cycle right now of, do I actually need a CDP to do these things? So you kind of got me mentally distracted, and as I'm scanning this list of like all the cool stuff, I'm like, wow, Billy's got a good point. Like, to do early access, do you really need a CDP to do that?
In this use case, here's an example I can think of. Say it is height of the pandemic. You cannot buy a new car off the lot if you tried. You try to go to Restoration Hardware, and all of the items you want to buy are backlogged like 10 months. It's an insane cycle.
Right.
And then you have loyalty members who sign up, they create an account with you, they start favoriting their items or they put them in their cart. And then for people who have had those items in their cart, you basically do a raffle to say, like, if you add these items to your cart, we'll give you 24 hours to purchase them and we'll let you know within like,
Hmm.
a week or something. I could see something like that feeling like a really important benefit. And that's something you would need a CDP to be able to do, to say, if
Yeah.
this specific item comes back in stock or you can't pre order it or we get a special amount of them, we'll let you know first. That's almost like if you're waiting to see if you get upgraded on a plane sort of use case. Um, and in that case, that item match does typically needs a CDP, not always.
A couple things on his list you kind of touched on, like prizes, a chance to win a prize, and like doing really creative prizing and giveaways is something that a CDP can help. You might not necessarily need a CDP to do that, but it can help you do it in a really, really effective way. And then something that I know
Mhm.
a CDP is really effective at that's on this list is abandoned cart reminders. Like really, really thoughtful, creative abandoned cart reminders. How do you feel about those? Hey, you've left this in your cart. Here's a discount or an incentive to check out. What do you think there?
Again, I think that's a pretty easy use case. It's one single event.
Yep.
Most CRMs are fully capable, even a CEP or a customer engagement platform, really capable of hosting that data. I think it's just like, how does that use case fit into how many use cases you have in total? If you just need basic abandoned cart and you just want to send a reminder, hey, you still have items in your cart, just reminding you they're here, you can do that with fairly limited data. If you really want to be able to say you've got these 7 items in your cart and let us connect the content that you're using, that's generally just a headless content management system or some kind of way of using connected content. So, not necessarily a CDP needed to do that. You do need some basic like data architecture and event taxonomy set up, and a CDP helps empower that. But, like, generally, those would be things that any good customer engagement platform or CRM
Yep.
would also be capable of. I'm trying to think about when a CDP
Yeah, I was going to
would
ask you,
really
like,
make that use
what does
case
a
better.
CDP really unlock? That's like, wow, now that we have this CDP in place, we can do like this, we can do X, and this is like really going to move the needle.
Yeah, I think one difference might be like when those items go out of stock and you want to be notified when they're back in stock. And then
Yep.
you want to pair that with the fact that you have loyalty points available or you have a discount code that's waiting for you or you have a birthday gift reminder. Like the ability to layer those different types of personalization and do it at scale and do it in a way that's automated, that's what a CDP is really great for. When it's not just like one use case you're trying to trigger with a single message, but how do you layer together multiple modules to create a truly unique experience for each user? Those get
Yep.
really tricky without a CDP. One that I think of pretty significantly is in media, for media brands that also do in person events. So, say like sports. If you are a ticket holder and you purchased a ticket to a game on Ticketmaster, and you're going to be live and in person for that game, but you will also receive emails from that sports franchise business. Let's just say it's the NBA. I don't know that the NBA does this, but the NBA gets purchase data from Ticketmaster. They know that you're going to very likely be live and in person for a game in a week. Having just like a countdown clock that says, like, see you at this stadium in 7 days, 6 days, 5 days can be really effective if they're going to also tell you, by the way, there's new jerseys out for these players that you
Yeah.
favorited in the app, and you abandon cart. If you come back in the next 30 minutes and you make a purchase, we'll give you X off. When you want to have that level of personalization, you need a CDP.
Speaking of media brands, like the streaming services have mastered this in a lot of ways, like in terms of show recommendations and helping you navigate this endless sea of options. They've done it really well. What I have not seen as much as brands in the kind of consumer retail do this at a way that it's like almost hard to come up with really great examples, because I think we're just at the beginning of them trying to figure out, should we spend all this money to implement this platform, and what's the benefit we're going to get. They're kind of still talking about basic personalization, and it's not rocket science. But anything else, there's, as I look through the list of like the cool stuff, I was kind of underwhelmed. That's where it was like, man, we need to talk about this, because surely there's more to, you know, and maybe it's really all in the nuance, and it's less about these tactics. But what a CDP really opens up is the ability to do this, but do it you mentioned at
At scale.
scale,
Yeah.
automated, is really where the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, yeah. When I think about a CDP and the decision of whether to invest in one or not, I'm of two minds. I don't generally say this, but I think it's important with a customer data platform. I don't, generally, I think pick a couple of use cases and make sure that you're empowered to do those use cases to the best of your ability. A great way to think about how to be successful with adopting a technology. But with a customer data platform, you also kind of have to think, if you're building a house, one of the decisions that you might have to make is, do you want to be on a city septic system? Do you want to build your house in a way that you're going to have access to like gas appliances? And if you make those decisions, yes or no, they might determine whether or not you can, say, have like an actual flame in your outside light that's on the front of your house next to your address numbers. That can be a huge aesthetic difference. But you're not going to make the decision to have gas in your home or propane in your home or have a gas powered stove, etc. You're generally not going to make it just for the stove. You might make it just for the
Right.
stove. You're certainly not going to make it just so you can have a live flame burning at your front door, even though that's a really beautiful aesthetic touch. There's a bit of that here where you have to decide, what are the pipes? What's going to be the health of the underlying systems in your customer data, and where you're going to store it, and how easy it's going to be for you to connect different pieces of data, where the impact over time of your ability to capture nuance about your customers and then leverage it in a way that feels authentic and doesn't feel creepy. That's the difference. If you want to be able to do things that don't leave your customers with that ick vibe, often the ability to do things in an elegant way that leaves them feeling like, oh, that was helpful, that was valuable, that was nice,
It was not creepy.
it was not creepy,
Mm,
is in the execution. A
yeah,
CDP often allows you to do things without the ick associated with them, because you can do it much more elegantly than
love
the
that.
simple triggering of an out of the box feature.
Yeah. That's a great description, and I know I'm headed off to some conference. It's kind of fall conference season, and heading off to some conferences. One of those is some events with one of our CDP partners, and I'm thinking we should start to ask some of these questions to the CDP vendors, and so I'll see if we can get somebody from this particular platform on as a guest, and we can start to ask them this question and see if they point to. I love your description of elegance. That's a really good way to think about it. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Room for Growth. I'm sure we're going to have some future conversations about CDP. It's something that we're talking about with our clients all the time, and is certainly a hot topic in the industry right now, especially with budget planning coming up and in the new year. So look forward to some of those future conversations. And thanks for listening today.